everyone. I hope you had a restful break. This is actually the last lecture that we have for this course, and it's on chapter 11. That's because the week after this week, y'all have speeches. Those are going to be persuasive speeches, and then the week after that is going to be your final. So that's great news. You should see your essay grades posted by tonight. I also needed a break, so I took one and I hope we all enjoyed it. That being said, we're going to go ahead and talk about the lecture for chapter 11. I hope you read it at home. So chapter 11 is going to be on leadership decision-making and decision-making in groups, which is really interesting actually. Because there are a lot of different methods and a lot of different styles that we operate under when we're engaging in groups. And oftentimes, we're not even aware that they're happening. We just see them occur naturally throughout our experience in a group. So the chapter outcomes are, we are going to explain how a leader's power, style, and personal qualities impact effectiveness. We are going to identify how culture affects appropriate leadership behavior. We're going to list forces that shapes a group decision-making process. We're going to list behaviors that improve effective leadership in meetings, and we're going to describe the ways to assess group performance, which is effective if you're trying to analyze a group that you're in for college and assess who's the leader and assess who plays what role to help accomplish said task, like we talked about in our group chapter. So, understanding group leadership. Leadership for our purposes is going to be the ability to direct or influence others' behavior and thoughts towards a productive end. So theoretically, you need a leader because you're in a group and you're trying to accomplish a thing. Influence may stem from a person's power or from the group members' admiration and respect for the individual. That falls more under referent power, but we'll talk a little bit about that on a different slide. This is the different slide, legitimate power. So legitimate power comes from someone's actual title. So if someone is your boss, they're going to be head of the Department of Communication, and they have legitimate power because they have a title and they are your boss. Coercive power, this typically comes from someone who's in a position to be able to coerce you into doing something that you might not want to do, like a coach who makes you run laps when you don't perform. So that would be a form of coercive power. Reward power, same thing, except in the form of reward. So like a coach that buys you pizza when you do something good, right? After a game, if you win. Expert power, typically this kind of power stems from someone who has a lot of knowledge, on the subject. So we're going to see this in, again, things like coaches who get their power from how much they know, or teachers who get their power from how much they know, or researchers who know things and share those things. And then referent power is going to be a basically form of power gained by someone who has strong interpersonal relationship skills. So we see this on the last side. So influence that stems from a group member's admiration or respect for the individual. So they have really good interpersonal skills, and that's why you respect them. All right, shared leadership. So in a group with shared leadership, we see members feeling more satisfied. We see members who are more motivated to perform, and we see that the group is more likely to achieve its goals, which is really interesting because sometimes if there's too many people in a position of shared leadership, you get too many cooks in the kitchen effect, where it's hard to get things done when the leaders are disagreeing with how to interact with the process. Group behavior, group leadership behavior. So we have directive. So directive focuses on the group tasks and controls the group communication. And so we are focusing on who's doing what and making sure we're all communicating about who's going to do what, by what time, on what day, we're going to have it done in time, things like that. And then we see supportive. Supportive attends to members' emotional and relational needs. So if someone's having a hard time, like their mom just lost their job and they're wondering if they're coming back next semester, This is the group member that attends to those emotional and relational needs, like, hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? How can I step up for you? Things like that. We see participative views members as equals, welcomes their opinions, summarizes points, and identifies problems that need discussion. So we see this as like a group that sits in a circle, and maybe the leader's like, all right, everybody spitball, and everybody has an equal amount to say, and all is equal in consideration. More group leadership behaviors. We also see laissez-faire, which is leaders delegate a large degree of power to the team members. So basically, this is when you see a leader that's like, hey, make sure you get your stuff done, send it to me, I'll put it together at the end. So I'm sure we've all been in groups that have done that. So you're on your own. You're going to figure it out. You're going to email it to someone. They're going to put it together, and then you're going to present on it when it's your turn during the group presentations. And then we also see achievement-oriented. So this sets challenges and goals and communicates high expectations and standards to the group throughout the process. So we see this as someone that's like, hey, like, you're not going to use the word once during your presentation to like challenge your group members and set goals and make sure the presentation comes out well to a high standard. Leadership qualities. So when we see leaders, we often see qualities that plague leaders, and these are just a few of them, obviously, but most of our leaders that we see have vision. So they're visionaries. They picture things differently from reality, or how they want the world to operate rather than it actually does. They consider the bigger picture, and they consider things long term. So these are people that can be pretty idealistic or want things to be differently than status quo. And then we see charisma. Charismatic leaders are the ones that we read all about, like leaders that motivate people and make them respond receptively to new ideas. They're the ones that get the ball rolling, and they're the ones that just come up and talk to you at your cubicle when you're sitting in an 8-hour day just talking, and they start spitballing ideas off of you. Initiative. We see transformative leaders who want to change things, who want to adapt, and want to grow as a means for the group or organization as a means to survive. So as we know, businesses or things always need to be growing and transforming with the times to survive. Otherwise, things become not relevant, or I don't know, not cool anymore. Like, we see all of these things. Like, we see fleets on Twitter. That is Twitter being transformative to survive. We saw that Instagram did it back in the day, and they adapted it from, I can't think of the other app, but they took it from somewhere. But these are what these apps feel like they need to do to survive. And I'm not a fan of fleets on Twitter, but you might be, and that's totally fine. But this is what we see when we talk about initiative. There's a lot of forms of unethical leadership. So we often see this with things like bullying, using harsh criticism, name-calling, gossip, slander, personal attacks, and threats against an individual. And sometimes leaders kind of make it seem like they're doing this to motivate you. Like, you don't want to be that person anymore, do you? Like, work hard and you won't. Or Machiavellianism, which is using deceit, flattery, exploitative measures to strategically achieve desired ends. Unethical leaders may also use positive qualities for unethical purposes. Like, they may compliment you when they're trying to steal a password from IT. I don't know, that's just a silly example, but like, there are ways to use positive qualities for negative things in the world of groups or business. Machiavellianism bad. Cultural variations. So we also see cultural variations in groups, which is sometimes hard when you have a group with a ton of different cultural backgrounds. We see high context cultures use less strict communication than low context cultures. We see power distance affects the level at which the group members participate. So if you're from a culture with a high power distance, you're probably not going to approach the leader directly. You're probably not going to approach someone directly because you don't speak directly to the person if there's a high power distance, or you might approach them differently. You're not going to challenge them in a meeting. You're going to talk to them about it afterwards. Low power distance cultures offer ideas really easily, or a lot more easily, but high power distance cultures may need encouragement to offer ideas because it's something that can be scary or not encouraged in a high power distance. Because sometimes when you're offering new ideas, it can seem like you're challenging the leader, or you don't like their ideas, so you feel like you need to offer your own, which is sometimes unacceptable in a high power distance culture. Gender and leadership. Research does not support existence of gender differences in leadership. There is a popular notion that persists that masculine styles emphasize control, and there is a popular notion that persists feminine styles look to the needs of group members. Not a lot of research on it, none of it's consistent, none of it is replicable, and so we don't really operate under biases or assumptions of gender in leadership. Groupthink. So groupthink is a problem in which group members strive to maintain cohesiveness and minimize conflict by refusing to critically examine ideas, analyze proposals, or test solutions. So sometimes we think of groupthink, it's when everybody in the group can be so like-minded and they don't want to cause conflict, so they don't challenge each other's ideas. So it's like, oh, that's a great idea, we're just moving on. And sometimes we see this in brainstorming. We don't challenge the ideas we produce in brainstorming because we're also like-minded and we don't want to cause conflict. So we fail to critically examine our ideas and maybe find a better one. Because peace is always better than conflict, so we're not going to challenge somebody else's idea because we don't want to hurt their feelings. But that can lead to things like groupthink and perhaps not getting things done in the most efficient or best way possible. In the extreme, groupthink has the capacity to prevent groups from making smart decisions because they're too unwilling to challenge the status quo, or they're too unwilling to try to throw a different idea out there that might not be received well by the group. All right, which takes us to the problem-solving process. So the problem-solving process is first we identify the problem. We got to figure out what's wrong before we try to solve it. 2, we analyze the problem. We take a deeper look at it. We figure out where it's coming from, what it's affecting, and then we start generating solutions, brainstorming. But this is where it's really important here that we stay away from groupthink. So we're generating solutions, we're talking, we're having discourse about what it means, or we're having discourse about the different ways that we can fix it. And then we evaluate and choose the best solutions. So we're going to narrow them down, pick the best ones, see the best ones that work for all of us, challenge it to make sure it stands up. We're going to implement the solution, and then finally we are going to assess the results that occur from implementing the solution, see if it works. That is the problem-solving process. There are 6 steps. They're important for you to know. Write them down. Make sure you take a look at your textbook and read through those. And that is all I'm going to say about that. Leadership in meetings. So it's really important for leadership in meetings to plan meetings effectively. Don't waste people's time. Sorry, excuse me. So justify the meeting. Make sure you're not wasting people's time and inviting them there for no reason. Nobody likes their time wasted. Clarify the purpose and the participants, who needs to be there and why you're having the meeting. And then set an agenda. Be like, the first thing we're going to talk about is X, the second thing we're going to talk about is Y, the third thing we're going to talk about is Z. So that way, if you get off topic, you know what you need to come back to and you know what you still need to cover. So that's a really good way to stay efficient in a meeting. Manage meetings effectively. So we need to make sure leadership in our meetings is effective. So that means we need to arrive prepared. We need to set ground rules. Which means we need to set rules that is acceptable for everyone. Like, I don't know, like sometimes professors set crazy rules, like if you don't arrive on time, I will lock the door and you don't get to come in. But like those are the ground rules that are set by the leader in the meeting. And obviously anybody can generate ground rules, like, I don't know, like rules like no eating on Zoom, again, which is silly, or ground rules like if you bring something, you have to bring something for everyone to share. Again, silly rule. But there are actually like really good rules, like, I don't know, like don't arrive late. Like that's probably something that would frustrate everybody over time. So like don't arrive late, or try not to get off topic because that extends the meeting for everybody. Yeah, keep the group focused, keep an eye on the time. If you go over in time, then you're wasting everybody's time. And if you say that you're only going to meet till 3, only meet till 3, because then you're disrespecting people's time. Manage distractions. That's kind of good. You got to rein them in, because then you're probably going to go over time if you talk about how your weekend in the Bahamas. I don't know who goes to the Bahamas right now. We're in a pandemic. But if you talk about your weekend at home solving a puzzle that's all over my table right now, it was so much fun, except it wasn't. And manage conflict effectively as it arises. Conflict is something that is not inherently bad, because it means that you're challenging ideas and things and people, which might be important steps to your process. A conflict can get bad if not managed effectively. But disagreeing or argumentation on a particular idea that arose was it's not a particularly bad thing. You need to summarize periodically so you don't get lost in all of the conversations you've had. So like now that we've talked about what time we're going to arrive, now we're going to talk about what we need to bring to the meetings or who's responsible for what. So summarize and then move forward. And then follow up with everybody. Like make sure you have a leader or you designate someone to text everybody like at least once, or email if you're in a professional context, text once throughout the week to be like, hey, how's it going? Do you need anything? Is it getting done on time? Are you good? How can I support you? You're always going to want that person in that social role to follow up with your group members to make sure they feel well supported. Using meeting technology effectively. This is an old slide, but it is very relevant today. Face-to-face teams perform better initially, and are better at compromise. Virtual teams are better at brainstorming. I don't know about this. This is from your textbook, but so what it says goes, obviously, but it's really interesting. That's actually something I want you guys to think about. Do you think that face-to-face teams perform better initially and are better at compromise? And then do you think virtual teams are better at brainstorming, or in your personal anecdotal experience, has it been easier to brainstorm in person? So think about it. Let me know. All right, evaluating group performance. So informational considerations. Are all group members participating? And how well do they analyze problems and generate creative solutions? These are really important to consider when thinking about the things that your group has produced, and if they are producing things effectively, and if the things they are producing are helpful. And then procedural effectiveness. So how is the group operating? Are group activities and communication coordinated and shared? Or are people just texting on the side? Are they texting their friends? How is communication in the group? How are activities in the group? Are people engaging? Are people only engaging in their cliques? That's something that's really important to be aware of. All right, interpersonal performance. So are relationships among members effective? And individual performance, are you experiencing group hate? How are you and your team members performing? So you need to look at the interpersonal performance, like how are we connecting as a group? How are we interacting? Are the relationships effective? Are they helpful, or are they hurtful or damaging? Do people not get along? How is this working? And then individual performance, like how are you interacting with the group? Are you performing well? Does the group like you? Do you feel like ostracized from the group? And then how are you performing, and how are your team members performing? All right, and then that is the last of it for chapter 11. I hope that all of you have had a restful break. I hope you're getting ready to gear up for the end of the semester. I can't figure out how to make me big again. Nope, that's not it. I've done this a million times. I don't know what's happening. All right, well, on that note, figured it out. Nope, did not figure it out. All right, on that note, I'm going to end the video. I hope y'all are having a great time. My gosh, I'm gonna figure this out, I promise. And I look forward to reading all of your papers, or I've read half of them already, but the rest will be in tonight. And then I look forward to hearing all your speeches in the next couple of weeks. Start studying for your midterms. We will have, we will only be testing you on whatever we left off on the midterm to the final. So all the chapters we've covered since the midterm will be on it. If you don't know what chapters those are, go ahead and check the syllabus and just look at all the chapters since the midterm, write them all down. I will be posting a PDF with terms that are important for you to know on titanium, just like I did with the midterm. So go ahead, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I look forward to hearing from all of you. Have a great week. Bye, y'all. Stay safe.